How did the hipster burn his mouth?
I don't know.
He drank his coffee before it was cool.
Oh.
I teach out of passion. I really love to introduce new folks to guns, safety, accuracy, and then eventually speed. I'm a huge fan of holster training very early on. A firearm in the holster is safe. If it's a well-designed holster that fully protects the trigger guard, and it is a well-designed firearm that cannot go off in the holster, then a gun in the holster is safe. If you have two people who are equally skilled with guns, but one of them has far more practice and experience operating their gun under pressure, who do you think is going to do better? Competition is not a gunfight, but a gunfight is a competition, is the way you put it. It's the learning that you get from operating your equipment under stress is just incredible. Well, as our good friend Chuck Haggard says, OC is what you need between a harsh word and a gun. If it's not a gun problem and the harsh word isn't helping, OC is the tool. See what works, emulate the best of the best, discard the rest. No negative self-talk is allowed in my classes. You are allowed to say, I can do better, or as our friend John Dobbs says, interesting data point.
If you're new or watching this as a replay, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Please subscribe to Defenders Live on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and join our group on Facebook as well. And if you don't want to miss another episode, you can sign up for email notifications at defenders-live.com. This episode is brought to you by BarrelBlok. BarrelBlok is America's best-selling firearms safety and training aid. It's a simple, easy-to-use, dry fire training device. Train with your firearm with 100% safety with BarrelBlok. Learn more by clicking the link in the description below. Tim has taken well over 1,200 hours. Think how much time that is. 1,200 hours of personal defense training, and has been building his experience, skills, and defensive training knowledge since the 1980s. Tim is a certified Texas licensed to carry instructor, NRA CCW instructor, Masada Ayub Group Deadly Force instructor, and Range Master certified in professional pistol craft. He's extremely passionate about teaching people to protect themselves and their families via mindset and basic competence with defensive tools. Let's welcome Tim onto the show. Hey, Tim.
Hey, Laura. Thanks for inviting me. I'm truly honored to be asked.
Well, we're going to have some fun tonight. I think this is going to be a great conversation. I can't really tell you how I know that other than I've interviewed a lot of people. And you kind of get a sense for it after a while, if you know what I mean.
I do.
Yeah. I don't know much about you other than you live in Texas. I've read up on you a little bit. For those that don't know you, is there anything that was not in the bio that you'd like people to know about you?
The bio is just a real brief clip. The main thing is that I teach out of passion. I really love to introduce new folks to guns, safety, accuracy, and then eventually speed. But I'm really passionate with giving people the tools to protect themselves and their families. I think that the world would be a much better place if good people were well-trained and ready to protect themselves whenever and wherever they need to.
I totally agree. Was there something that happened that led you to that, or is that something you've always believed in?
That's a good question. I actually do have an event that happened when I was in high school, I believe. A couple of good friends of mine were out in a secluded spot saying a romantic goodbye when a guy with a knife stopped by and sort of interrupted their goodbyes there. And I'm not going to say any more about what happened. Suffice to say that it left both of them with some pretty deep emotional scarring, and it left me with just an overpowering urge to learn what I could to help prevent that for me and for anyone else.
Wow. So you were a friend of these people? That's what happened? Yeah. You heard about this later then, or?
Not a lot later, but just a little bit. It had a strong impact on my worldview.
And you were young then too?
I was just, I think I was 17.
17. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So then did you have other careers, so to speak, before firearms training?
Oh, yes, many. I retired from a company called USAA back in 2018. I worked there for 29 years and 10 months in the IT world there. I was a troubleshooter. I wound up kind of traveling all around the U.S. with some senior executives and board members and learning to deal with not quite life or death stuff, but very serious failure is not an option sort of thing. If the CEO is giving a presentation, you have computer problems or other stuff, it kind of reflects badly on you. So
right.
I used to say that sometimes the most we could hope for a bad day at work was that nobody died. And that was pretty much the case. But I had a good team. We really enjoyed the work that we did. So in 2018, I retired, though. I had founded TDR Training back in 2010 because I could see that I really wanted something to do to kind of keep busy, give myself a chance to keep teaching. 2010 to 2018, it was pretty much just word of mouth advertising. And then after 2018, I've been working quite a bit more on teaching in a wider and wider circle.
So I bet you gained a lot of experience in that previous career that applied to being an instructor, sounds like.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. People like to make fun of PowerPoint, but it's a very practical tool. And working for the CEO and the senior executives, I got to see what good PowerPoint looked like. I have to give a shout out to my friend Tiffany here, though. Even after decades at USAA with outstanding presentations, I have learned things from Tiffany that are her stuff is the best of the best. She teaches it's not PowerPoint for dummies, but basically how to make your presentations the best they can be. I've learned a lot from her, and I still have more to learn.
You added a quote in one of the emails that you sent me that said, it was a Tiffany Johnson quote, and it said, "Don't speak to be understood, speak so you cannot be misunderstood."
Yes.
What does that mean, and how do you do that?
We're all bound by our own experiences, and we speak about things and we use jargon and we speak about things in a certain context and we use words that have multiple meanings. And having been in this since the 80s, it's very easy for me to forget somebody doesn't have the background to understand the context or a word that is unfamiliar. Through exposure to Tiffany, I've worked more and more on just basically making everything that I say be as unambiguous as possible, as clear, as simple, and just as easy to understand and as hard to misunderstand as possible. You tell somebody, okay, go ahead and drop the mag or drop the slide. And somebody's like, okay, is he want me to drop the gun? Was he
right?
Precise phrasing. Okay, pick up the magazine with your support hand. That's the one, not with the gun. Insert the magazine with the bullets facing forward. Take the magazine in, try to tug it out. Bring your support hand over the top and grip the back of the slide. Just real nice, simple, easy to digest directions, because for many of the folks that I deal with, this is their absolute first ever experience with a firearm. Trying to make it as simple, stress-free as possible is critical.
So I'm thinking of myself here, and I'm thinking the only way that could truly be audited is to somehow bring in people who are totally foreign to the space and get their honest feedback.
Yes. And if I may throw in another little idea here, one way to do that, Toastmasters it's a group that teaches public speaking and leadership, and it was strongly encouraged at USAA. So I joined in my first year or two at USAA, and I learned a tremendous amount there. Speaking about what we were just saying is you can give speeches in Toastmasters on any topic you like. And so if you have topics, things that you want to present to an audience who is completely unfamiliar, that might be a good place to do it is in Toastmasters. The other really good lessons from Toastmasters were teaching impromptu speaking, losing that fear of speaking in front of a group without a script. The first time I ever volunteered for that was I'd been going to Toastmasters meetings for I'd been to about 6 or 8 meetings. I'd given my icebreaker speech, which is just this is all about me, who I am, where I'm from, etc. But I'd never done any table topics, the 2 or 3 minute impromptu stuff. And one day in this meeting, I was like, I'm going to do it. So they asked for volunteers and I raised my hand and they said, Tim, come on up. I said, okay, great. I pop up there in front of a group of about 15 or 20 people that I had sort of gotten to know. The topics master looks at me and says, okay, Tim, your question for today is, what do you like about working at USAA? And I thought, oh my gosh, could there be an easier question? For those who don't know, great big company, sort of military oriented, military formed, tremendous benefits, opportunities for advancement, just all sorts of great stuff. And I said, Mr. Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. What I like about working at USAA is, and all of a sudden I heard a buzzing in my ears and the room got really blurry. And I went, and I had complete brain freeze.
Wow.
And after saying, for about 10 seconds, it was obvious that I could not continue. And the topics master said, oh, thank you, Tim, and shook my hand and sent me back to my chair. And I sat down going, oh my God, that was awful. That is the worst thing that can happen. But it really wasn't that bad. I didn't die. People didn't laugh at me. And after that, I lost all fear of speaking in front of a group. It just, it was that thing. It was like, that is the worst thing that can happen to a public speaker. And it's not that bad. And so, yeah, I volunteered for stuff after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a really good thing, though. I know a fear of public speaking is very common. And as instructors, we do a lot of public speaking, thinking what is literally the worst thing that could happen? You're not going to die.
And having it happen, it's sort of cathartic.
Yeah.
I actually use this in my classes occasionally. I talk about people, what is the number two fear of human beings? And the number two fear of human beings is death. The number one fear, public speaking. And so by
No kidding.
learning to practice that and get taught techniques for that, it can make you a much more effective instructor, I think.
So then from then on,
Mhm.
you just lost the fear? It was just gone?
Absolutely. About a month or two after that, our IT boss said, "Hey, I need somebody to run the monthly meeting, be the MC, and introduce other guests, and also take questions and answers." He said it'll be about 300 people. I said, "I'll do it." And I worked in IT security at this time, so I get up there and I open with a little joke and some stories and stuff. And then I say, Reggie said I had to take questions. So does anybody have any questions? And this one lady in the audience who obviously had a beef with security, we had a reputation around USA of being hard to deal with sometimes. She stood up and said, "Well, I got a question for you." And she proceeded to just essentially chew me a new one about this policy that system security had. And she finally answered with, "Why can't you do this?" And she sat back down. I said, "Ma'am, thank you so much for that question. That is a great question. And the person to answer it is Mr. Thomas, right over there in the audience. Mr. Thomas, would you please answer this lady's question?" But I didn't feel personally attacked. I didn't stress out or anything. If I had known an answer, or if I had something else I could have answered, I would have given her the answer to a question I'd wish she'd asked, something I knew about. But in this case, I just was able to deflect it to somebody else smoothly and let them deal with the angry customer.
I'm sure he appreciated that too.
He was very
Okay, so this, guys, can apply. This can apply to firearms training. And here's what I think about this. This being put on the spot and doing something uncomfortable, whether you're in a public speaking situation or whether you're in a class that you've never gone to before and you've got a gun in your hand for the first time, that just putting yourself out there and being uncomfortable is all the same thing. In much the same way that some of the techniques, I guess, that I've developed in learning to not be afraid to be in front of people, a couple of things that have helped me is breathing. And having control of your breathing is an essential component to keeping your composure and your calm state of mind. That's been very helpful. The other thing, as an instructor, that I think, and as in public speaking, I'm trying to mesh these two things together, is, for me anyway, to change the focus away from myself into what message is important for these people to hear, like being of service to others rather than having the focus be on yourself. That, in the beginning of my podcasting journey, was the difference, I think, for me, being able to continue on having a mission and a purpose of what am I doing here? It's not about me. It's about what I can provide other people. And when you shift that mindset, I think that changes everything, no matter what you're doing. Would you agree?
Absolutely. But the goal is not to, oh, hey, look at me, I'm smart and I know all this stuff and speak well in front of a group. No, it's I have potentially life-saving information to impart to you, and I want to get it to you as effectively and efficiently as possible, whatever that is.
Yeah. So speaking of that, then let's talk to people who may be new to this world, because that's your jam. That's who you talk to. What is it that you wish those people knew before they came to class?
I wish they knew how safe and how welcoming and how potentially useful and how fun the world of firearms is. I have brand new folks come out in I think a lot of folks are just, it's like, gosh, I don't want to put myself in that uncomfortable position, and firearms, they're dangerous. I just don't know. I had a couple of older Asian higher education folks take a class from me a few years ago, and they came out and we got everything set down. I gave them some note-taking materials, some fill-in-the-blank stuff and things. And for the first 30 or 45 minutes, it was just basically discussing safety and things like that. And then after a little bit, then we got into handling blue guns and actually, how to stand, how to do this. And, then we get into the CERT training simulators. And then we took a break. One of the students turned to me and goes, "This is not what I expected." And I said, "Did you expect you would come out here and I'd hand you a gun for each hand and you'd be going like this in about 5 minutes?" And he said, "Kind of, yeah." I said, "Well," and I said, "Okay, it's not what you expected, but what do you think about it?" And he said, "I love it. Absolutely love it." Yeah. And I think if people realize that well done firearms instruction is extraordinarily safe and fun, and that I do not allow politics in my class. It is a very safe environment, both physically and emotionally and everything else, so that folks can learn without feeling othered.
And I know that there are, unfortunately, some companies, instructors out there that aren't operating in this way. So have you had some people come to you with some bad experiences, and how have you dealt with that?
Absolutely. One of my students from a few years ago, who is now just a superstar, she came to me. She had just gotten her NRA RO certification. She wanted to work on her shooting a bit. We started working. She had really bad recoil anticipation. We worked on each little issue and got her progress. And my style is very much, okay, try this and now do this and that. Yes, that's it, exactly right. And I'm very positive about when somebody does something right. After that first lesson, she goes, oh man, her previous instructors had been the kind who said, no, don't do that. Stop doing that. What are you doing? That's stupid. And just yelled at her and really given her some pretty serious emotional scars. She is now, I think she's USPSA B class shooter now, and extraordinarily talented, really good. And I'm glad I had a hand in her progress.
It sounds like you're exceptional at emotional management of students. How important is that as an instructor?
In firearms training, it almost can't be overstressed. I had an intro class for a group of ladies, about 5 ladies. We were in the classroom and we kind of went over all the safety stuff in the classroom. And then it came time to pick up a cert. And one lady she was terrified. She was shaking like a leaf. She picked it up and then she immediately put it back down and almost burst into tears. And I said, it's okay. Here, come on over here. We'll take care of it. And I just let her know that there was absolutely no issue with this. And we would only do as much as she was comfortable with. We finished the classroom part. She was able to use the cert, demonstrate grip, sights, trigger, all that good stuff. We went out to the range, and then it was time to bring out the little pistols, starting with 22s. And, everybody on their first one gets a gun with 1 round in it. And she picked it up. She fired that 1 round. She bit her lip. I could see she was trembling. And I said, do you want to do another one? And she thought for a minute and said, yes. And by the end of that class, she was drilling a hole like this at about 5 yards. Just beautiful work.
Where does that come from, Tim? Where did you obtain these skills? Or is it intuitive?
I think it's the experience of doing it wrong for a lot of the time.
Really?
When I used to ride dirt bikes, I would do stuff with friends, and I had friends who were newer at it, and I'd say, hey, do this. And I learned very quickly that you don't tell somebody do this, and if they don't do it right the first time, you say not like that. No, and you keep correcting them over and over again. Lots of
micromanaging.
Absolutely. No, you say, all right, you want to try this, and let them try it several times, look for little improvements, praise those improvements, gentle corrections on the stuff that needs changing. But
and everyone's different too. Everyone's different. I think the best instructors adapt to their students is what I think.
My sweetheart, Amy, is she's funny because I teach that. I try to teach Amy that way. And she's like, no, I don't want that. She said, when I do it right, I want you to be, hard and say, give me another one just like that. Do that again. And she's that's the way you need to teach me. It's like, okay. But there's also a thing where there's a window when a spouse can be a spouse's instructor. And that window is very small and it closes pretty early. So I don't try to instruct Amy anymore.
Yeah, that is a thing for sure.
Yeah.
So I know that you wanted to talk about foundational holster skills. And as an instructor, students going to the holster, in my opinion, is can be one of the most negligent things as far as safety concerns go. So we watch that very carefully. But the other side of that is, and I don't know what your opinion is, I'll just tell you mine and I want to get yours. I do not feel as though newer students are allowed to work from a holster soon enough, because I work with my students the first half of the day after we get through all the safety stuff, obviously with dry guns, but I allow them the opportunity to work in and out of a holster with a dry gun for as long as they need to in order to build up skills, in order to work in and out of a holster with a live gun. And they may never get there all day long, and that's okay. But I think they should be given that opportunity and not be automatically written off that, okay, you might be a newer student, so therefore you can't handle this. There's no way you can be confident and capable of trying this. I think that's a disservice, in my opinion. What do you think?
I could not agree more.
Oh, I didn't know what your opinion was going to be, so.
I'm a huge fan of holster training very early on.
Yeah.
One of the main issues is that we want to handle firearms safely, and a firearm in the holster is safe. If it's a well-designed holster that fully protects the trigger guard, and it is a well-designed firearm that cannot go off in the holster, then a gun in the holster is safe. The problem is that when people are handling guns, I'm a huge fan of hot ranges as well. Cold ranges, people are like, oh, it's okay, I can handle the gun because it's unloaded. And of
Yeah.
course, that's where you get into problems. So I absolutely prefer hot ranges because everybody knows the gun stays in the holster until
Right.
you're on the line.
Right.
And that, no excuses, no ifs, ands, or buts. That's it. That is the rule. Gun in the holster is safe. It only comes out when you're under the direction of an instructor. The other thing too is with holstering, I think that, and I picked up some of this from John Johnston and from Clint Smith and Masayub and other things. So firearms are only dangerous out of the holster. And when they're coming out of the holster, all the forces acting on the gun are essentially against pressing the trigger. It's mainly reholstering where you have the highest risk. If you work your holster technique so that the muzzle never covers any part of your body on both the presentation and, more importantly, on the reholstering, you build in good techniques, good overlapping safety techniques on that holstering technique, it is absolutely fine. We're not putting anybody on a timer with this or anything.
Right.
I have a class called Holster Success, a 3-hour class that I presented at the Rangemaster Tactical Conference several times and taught a number of times here. It's essentially very much on building that. We want to get to airline levels of safety with firearms handling. Accidents in hundreds of thousands of hours, not just hundreds of hours.
Right.
And by building in those fundamental safety habits early on, I think it's really, really good. Oh, and my dog just came in to see how I'm doing here.
Mine does that too sometimes. I think you probably heard her earlier barking.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Along those same lines, then, let's talk about competition a little bit. There seems to be an ongoing debate about whether or not competition affects negatively your defensive use of a firearm in a real life environment. My opinion is that anything else in life, if you use your brain, it may not be exactly the same circumstances. So you adapt to what the circumstances are. So I think competition is a valuable training tool, and maybe not training, because you're not training in competition. You're really assessing where you are. The timer doesn't lie. So would you agree with that? Or are you of the opinion that we should stay away from competition?
Once again, I'm a huge fan of that. I think your stance is absolutely right. And, like everything else, it depends. Can competition cause issues with defensive skills? Absolutely. If you if you kind of go down that path. One of the classes that I just developed recently, we presented at the last TACCon to some very positive feedback, is called Kilt in the Streets, a defensive handgunner's introduction to competition. It's for folks who know how to shoot, they've taken classes, but they've never done competition, and they want to maybe try IDPA or USPSA or Steel Challenge, and they don't want to be that guy when they get there. So it's a 4-hour class on basically, why should you compete? Part of it, Masayub had a great podcast, and I'd actually taken a little quote out of his podcast and worked on presenting it as Mas and doing my Mas impersonation. And it was my fellow instructors who helped me build the class said, don't do that.
Don't do that.
But basically what he says is, if you have two people who are equally skilled with guns, but one of them has far more practice and experience operating their gun under pressure, who do you think is going to do better? Competition is not a gunfight, but a gunfight is a competition, is the way he puts it. It's the learning that you get from operating your equipment under stress is just incredible. I'm going to give a shout out to another person I've learned a ton from, John Hearn. He's got a great all-day lecture called Who Wins, Who Loses, and Why. He talks about the physiological things that go into performing well under stress. So it's an absolute wonderful class. Highly recommend, and it's just a lecture, so anybody can attend. Learning how you work under stress, learning how your equipment works under stress. One woman who carried her gun, practiced with it. That was her defensive gun. She came and shot a match with me. At the end of the match, she came over and she said, wow. She said, I thought my holster was going to work differently than it did under stress. I thought my concealment garment was going to work differently under stress. I thought my gun was going to work differently. And she said, I can see I'm going to have to make changes now.
Yeah.
And that just makes me so happy. People testing their gear under stress, testing themselves, getting some of that stress inoculation, essentially.
I totally agree. I also like that you advocate for understanding the psychological and physiological aspects of self-defense, which I would love to get into if you want. Training what's between your ears and why that's so important. I think that it's become almost a pet peeve of mine. People have their firearm, they're carrying their firearm every day, but they rarely train with it. Or if they do train with it, they only train with just their gun on a static range with no stress. They don't understand the physiological things that are going to happen under stress, and they have only the gun as their tool. So they have no other options. They don't have OC spray. And as you know, OC spray can fix a lot of problems. It can fix a lot of problems. So you don't have to go to your gun, because the gun should be your last resort. What are your thoughts on all those things?
Well, as our good friend Chuck Haggard says, OC is what you need between a harsh word and a gun. If it's not a gun problem and the harsh word isn't helping, OC is the tool. And I'm a huge proponent of OC. I've got my canister of Palm with me everywhere. My sweetheart carries her canister all the time. It is such a useful tool, widely legally acceptable, ethically, morally. I'm embarrassed at how many years I carried a gun and did not carry pepper spray. But gosh, I'm guessing it was probably about 10 or 12 years ago, I kind of got the news and went, oh my gosh, yeah, and started carrying immediately.
And it makes sense when you finally get the message, you know what I mean? But then I was the same way. I don't know why I thought that way either, but now I don't feel fully prepared unless I have both, because what if I need one or the other and I don't have it? So
yes, it's, I've just recently seen some videos of people getting attacked by dogs, people's dogs, pet dogs getting attacked by other dogs, and them trying to fend the dog off with their hands or stick their body in the middle of a dog fight. And I'm thinking, no, pepper spray.
Yeah,
it's
very effective.
Such a great tool. And I would be happy if everybody who was to take another quote from Tiffany and Akil, was in favor of pro-social violence. So not anti-social violence, but violence in defense of, innocent folks, essentially. If just everybody carried pepper spray everywhere, that would make such a huge difference in their ability to deal with a lot of problems that otherwise are hard to deal with.
I totally agree.
And let's see, we had pepper spray. What was the other thing we were talking about just before that?
Well, the psychological and physiological aspect of it, I don't know that's talked about a whole lot, but that's a huge component.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. In one of the very first tactical Rangemaster Tac Cons that I went to, the first class I took was John Hearn's Who Wins, Who Loses, and Why class. And that really piqued my interest in the whole mental training and, what's the difference? A lot of folks in the training world have seen the Dinkheller video of Kyle Dinkheller, who was essentially murdered by a man he had pulled over. By all accounts, Dinkheller was the best shot in that whole department. But when it came to performing under stress, he essentially just stuck the gun out there and emptied the magazine, and stuck the gun out there and emptied the magazine, and stuck the gun out there and emptied the magazine. But if we don't train people in the training environment, in the classroom environment, to perform a certain way, of course, under stress, they're not going to magically learn how to do it that way. You need to make your training and your expected usage as similar as possible. Along those lines, I just picked up some trigger interactive flags. So they're little wireless receivers with a motor that'll pop a flag up, so you get a visual signal.
Yeah.
Put these on steel plates downrange. I incorporate those in my defensive matches every other month, and folks seem to love that. So rather than all right, on the beep, you're going to shoot this and this and this and this, it's okay, when you see a flag, shoot it. As soon as the flag goes down, stop shooting that one. There's 6 targets downrange. By the way, there's 2 non-threats scattered in between those targets. So when you go from target to target, don't muzzle those non-threats, which people have a ton of trouble with, but we're training them to do that. People seem to really love that visual start indicator.
Yes, I recently got exposed to that at a Girl in a Gun National Conference. John Holshin was there.
Yes, a neuro system, right?
Yeah, with the lasers. And that was it was fascinating to observe not only other people, but how my own cognitive process slowed down through visual stimulation versus auditory.
Yes.
But when you think about it, there's no beeper in a gunfight.
It is not, and you don't get a standby and everything. Oh, Holshin stuff is great. I like John, and his stuff that he's doing is fantastic. Those neuro tools are fabulous. The ACE VR stuff, with good scenario writing for that could be tremendously useful for defensive training, I think.
Yeah, and it's fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It should be fun. Learning should be fun. I mean, there is a component to when you're learning something new, having that little bit of uncomfortable, and a little bit of stress, but fun inserted into it, I think cements it a little bit more. Don't you?
Oh, great. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of fun and rewards for basically doing what you're trying to do, learning what you're trying to learn. I give certificates to my students. No matter what the class is, they get a certificate that they have successfully completed X number of hours of private coaching or holster success or kilt in the streets training, whatever. I think that little tangible reward is a huge motivator for folks. Making it fun, having, seeing that smile when somebody, rings all 5 pieces of steel in a steel challenge stage on their first try, one shot, one hit. That is really satisfying.
You said that you are a firm believer in learning from other people's mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that? Could you give me an example?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So I've taken quite a few hours of training, and in every class I'm, paying attention and listening to what the instructor is saying and watching what they're doing. And if I see another instructor say something that is not quite clear to all the students, I know what they mean, but I'm looking at other students around me and I can tell they don't know what he means. I'm like, all right, make a note of that. If possible, talk with the instructor afterwards and let them know, hey, this may use some help in clarifying, something like that. But I make a note, don't use that phrase or don't do this when I see something that obviously doesn't work. I'm a keen believer in observing other people and what they do and seeing what works, but just as importantly, seeing what doesn't work.
You can learn a lot through observation.
Yes.
A lot.
See what works, emulate the best of the best, discard the rest.
Yeah.
And then another quote from Mark Twain is, it is possible to learn too much from experience. And I try to avoid doing that. Twain says, once burned, a cat will never sit on a hot stove again, but she will never sit on a cold one either.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. So then what is okay, this is going to be fascinating to me. You say removing ego improves results in everyday life and training. I agree. Is there such a thing truly as human beings to be able to remove your ego? So do you mean set it aside?
It is impossible to remove it because it is a part of our brains and our consciousness and how it works. But yes, set it aside. Don't give a lot of weight to what the ego is saying, because I see a lot of folks do that. And when they make a mistake, their ego is like, you idiot, you did that poorly. One of my directions in class is no negative self-talk is allowed in my classes. If you do something poorly or you do something that you don't think you did well, you're not allowed to shake your head and make faces and kick at the ground and call yourself any names or anything. You are allowed to say, I can do better, or as our friend John Dobbs says, interesting data point. And John Hearn in his Who Wins, Who Loses, he actually talks about the ego there, that why so few people will try competition. The reason for that is because it involves a risk of death to their ego. If they get out there and they realize with objective results, timers and points down, that they don't shoot as well as they thought they did, that is a huge blow to their ego, and the fear of that is what keeps people from trying it. So I have a confession to make. I have been shooting IDPA for a long time. I joined IDPA shortly after it was formed. I've been shooting IDPA for a long time, and I am still ranked as a sharpshooter. I'm not an expert or a master or anything like that. I think there's 2 reasons for that. One of them is that I've always tried to use IDPA as defensive training and not tried to go down that road of excessively gaming the stages and planning all sorts of, I'm not chasing 0.15 splits and trying to do all of the range lawyering I can to get an advantage. I use it to really practice and train defensive techniques. And I'm a little disappointed that I'm still ranked as a sharpshooter, because in events like just recently, Tom Givens was here. I hosted him for the professional pistolcraft instructor course, which is his next instructor course above master. Okay. And I was in class with a lot of really stellar instructors and shooters, Wayne Dobbs, Carl Wren, oh gosh, tons and tons of people. And I feel terrible because I'm leaving out names of people who are really good friends and everything, but I didn't think about refreshing the list in my mind here, but some really incredibly good shooters out there. Yet on day 3, when it was time for the 3 coin challenges in the morning, for some reason, I wound up taking home all 3 of those against these folks who are just incredible. Carl Wren from KR Training, he is grandmaster multiple times and in multiple divisions. He actually took overall top shot in the class, but I shoot very well, but apparently just not IDPA expert level in matches.
But what was it that day, Tim, that was something different that day, or were you just...
I had several people ask me what I had for breakfast. I don't think it was that. It was pretty much the usual. But part of it is that I'm out there and I'm like, grip, sights, trigger. And I was in the zone. I was focused, and I was not looking at anybody else's target while I was shooting. I was not thinking about anybody. I was just let the sights tell me when to press the trigger.
Yeah.
And
That's the name of the game at the end of the day. That's what it is. Yeah, I think that's when I did really well in Brian Hill's class, the thing he said to me before I started, see your dot, call your shot.
Yes.
That's it.
Brian's such an amazing coach and instructor. I've taken a lot of time with Brian. I actually, when I hosted him a number of years ago, same thing happened in his class. I just went in the zone and wound up shooting a brown belt patch in his class. I actually mentioned to him, I said, how is that possible if I'm just an IDPA sharpshooter? And Brian said, you are not an IDPA sharpshooter. You are a great shooter who is currently classified as sharpshooter level in IDPA.
Yeah.
So, okay. I like that.
Yeah.
He's a great mental coach as well as shooting coach.
Oh, he is. Yeah. Next level for sure. I feel so blessed that I've been able to train with and work with people of that level, because it's really made all the difference in the world for me. And what I think they don't even realize, and I should probably tell them this, is that truly the people that affect you in that way in a gun class, they affect your life positively in every other aspect, because the things that you learn about yourself when you're shooting a gun in their classes and people of that magnitude, it's a ripple effect in every aspect of your life. The growth that I've experienced since beginning the journey, I thought I was already on the journey. I started the journey in 2016, I believe, when I took my very first basic pistol class. But there was a whole other world out there, Tim, that I didn't even know existed. And not just out there as far as instructors, but out there as far as me expanding my own growth and the possibility of what I'm capable of, both in skill and in mental ability. And it inspired me to start this show. It inspired me to start on a fitness journey. And I tell you, just like shooting a gun on a range, the gun doesn't lie, the timer doesn't lie, but measuring yourself in a fitness aspect as well, that doesn't lie either. You can't fudge that. You either can do the thing or you can't do the thing, And I've learned a ton about myself in lots of ways. It's just amazing to me, though, that when you surround yourself with the right people, how your life can just dramatically be improved in so many ways. And what a gift that is, right? What a gift.
That's one of the things I love about the firearms training world, is that there are so many truly wonderful human beings in there who all they want is your success. They want you to be happy. They want you to succeed. And being around those kinds of people, I think I know I am very susceptible to the attitudes of people around me. And if I'm around people who are negative, it makes me feel negative. But the folks that we both know, associate with, Brian Hill, Memphis Beach, Tiffany Johnson, Akil Kadir, Adam Winch, John Correa, Riley Bowman, all of those people, all they want is for you to do better, to be better, to succeed. I'm extraordinarily amazed at how wonderful my life is because of being around people like that.
Well, and I'm sure that you're impacting people as well. So
I hope so.
I think you are. Yeah. You're a true gem. You're a gem, Tim. And I really didn't know much about you. You were a recommendation from somebody else. And wow, you are doing good work, my friend. You're doing good work. I haven't been in one of your classes, and I don't even have to have experienced it to know that about you. So thank you for what you do. Well,
thank you. That's my whole goal, is to, have people. The TDR training motto is gain competence, gain confidence. And I want people to have the confidence in their life that they can take care of themselves and their loved ones and go about their daily life unafraid.
Definitely. That's so important.
Yeah.
So where then, if people want to train with you, where can they find you?
I'm based near Bandera, Texas. I'll travel anywhere within, several hours of the San Antonio location. So Austin, Kerrville, Fredericksburg, primarily Bandera. Also, I've been extraordinarily honored to be invited to teach at the Rangemaster Tactical Conference, the ASP National Conference, Girl in a Gun National Conference. I'm around there, and I'm always happy to do custom classes for folks and things like that.
Okay, so your website is tdrtraining.com. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and then you're on Facebook and Instagram, so people can find you there as well. Great. All right. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything that you'd like to leave the audience with, or a topic maybe that we didn't cover?
One of the things about Toastmasters that I meant to mention earlier is that in Toastmasters, you get different roles. So can be a speaker, you can be an evaluator, you could be a table topics master or a table topics participant, things like that. But the evaluator skill is extraordinarily useful, again, for instructors, because it teaches you how to take somebody's baby, essentially the speech they just gave, and how to give them a constructive yet accurate feedback. There's some really great techniques for doing that. One of my favorites is the Oreo technique. You look at what somebody just did, in this case as a shooting instructor, when we've just run a drill. And afterwards, I'll tell somebody, okay, hey, you did a great job on presenting the handgun there. Beautiful, very efficient, very smooth, excellent job presenting. Now, with your accuracy, we had a few shots just outside the desired area, but that's not bad. We can work on that. And then to follow it up, your time was absolutely outstanding. You give them a very hard, this is great, a very soft and creamy, this could be a little better, and then a very hard, this is great. And that helps people accept the feedback. As we talked earlier, getting good feedback, that's kind of a little bit of a death of ego for some folks. So we want to encourage them to listen and learn.
That's called a compliment sandwich.
A compliment sandwich. I like it.
That's what I call it.
Well, I've got a huge sweet tooth, so the Oreo analogy works for me.
You're funny. All right, great. Well, I knew I would have fun with this interview, Tim, and I just really appreciate you taking the time and sharing some of your knowledge, expertise, opinions. You just have the best heart in the world. I can see it all over you, and I am so thankful that you took the time with me tonight. I'm honored to be asked, and you guys do great work as well at Defenders USA. Y'all's reputation in the training community is just stellar, and I'm happy to be associated with you in any way. Aw, well, thank you.